So the first thought that I had this morning seemed to be twofold. And one of the folds, if you will, was how nice it would be just to stay in bed. And leisure through the day. And that thought has both the positive sense, if you will, of relaxation and pleasure, and also the sense of not wanting to do something. And both of those are worthy of exploring. The other fold, if you will, was one of pure joy and excitement. That had both the specific sense of starting my work day in something that I love, which is my hospital chaplaincy. Simultaneous with something very broad. So let me see about tying these two folds or folding these two together. And I'll start with the latter. That is this very broad sense that I can feel and that perhaps could use a book to really say all that's within it. So to slow this down even further, I ask the question, where in my body am I feeling this? Curiously, that even in asking the question, somehow excitement arises throughout my body. So this process that I call wisdom sailing which is a deep listening process, as well as sailing in life from an active, deep listening in an ongoing way, and where there's much more to that as well. But it's curious at the process level that as I listen to my body and even ask the question of where in my body am I feeling something, that joy arises. How could it be that asking a question where I am truly interested in the answer and listening for the answer could bring up such joy? And actually, it seems very simple. But let me deepen the definition of listening first. That is, deep listening involves all of the senses. And indeed, interestingly enough, all of the senses are listening in their own modality to the outer and inner environments. Again, a whole book could be written here on the modalities of the senses. But to continue, when I ask the question of where in my body is this, I'm not just asking the question, and I'm not just listening deeply. But I am listening to my whole body in terms of sensation, feelings, emotional feelings, strong feelings, subtle feelings and sensations, thoughts, feelings of avoidance, feelings of numbness, sensations in the organs of my body, such as my heart, if and where there are tensions and tightness, what that tightness feels like. Why a feeling or thought or tightness is there. And on and on. But what I am also doing as I ask the question and listen is that whatever is there on any of these levels, whatever arises in terms of the listening and the response of my body with that question and with that listening, whatever it is, I'm curious about the answer. I'm curious about the discovery of the answer. I'm curious at the complexity of my body and its responses. And I deeply want to hear and feel whatever the modality is of the answer. I deeply want to know what that answer is. Perhaps a way to say that is that I want to be intimate with my body and why any sensation is there, why any thought is arising. Or I could say that I want to be well connected to my body, or well grounded, or well founded in it and of it. But this sense of intimacy, truly wanting to know what is here, whatever it is. Even if it were the strongest of what we call negative emotions of rage or anger or fear, or the strongest of positive emotions of joy or bliss or excitement or desire, and anything in between. I truly want to know what is there. So not only am I listening, but I am also present, available, curious. And there's something else which then also ties to the original question, or from whence that original question came. And that is something that once again could possibly use a book to write about. But I'll try to put it succinctly. Everything that is within my body and here I'm referring to all the things that are mentioned above of thoughts and feelings and sensations and ideas and responses, etc., whatever it is. Wants to be known. Everything wants to be listened to. And in that sense, to be seen. But also with the deeper listening that I mentioned. Of being safe to be seen and heard and to show up. So, although I did not mention those specific words above, that is part of listening as well. And within that as well is deep compassion. And acceptance. And intimacy. So it's curious in this way that intimacy, of the nature of which I am speaking, is safety of being together. The safety and acceptance and compassion and love shared in terms of being seen, being felt, being heard, being sensed. And in that form of intimacy, there is freedom. And in this form of intimate freedom, the freedom of this type of accepting and compassionate and deep listening, mutual intimacy, something else happens as well. That is perhaps little known and maybe more subtle, but nonetheless relevant. And in a certain sense, the carrier wave of all intimacy. That which propels, if you will, or carries or holds or transmits or communicates or shares true intimacy, of which I speak. And that is that if, or when rather, anything can be heard and seen and listened to so deeply and compassionately and acceptingly and intimately, both the person listening and the person being listened to, or the feeling or the sensation being listened to, as above becomes free. But what I want to point to here is that it becomes so free as to lose its demand to stay the way it is. It loses its demand to clobber anything that is different than it. It loses its demand for solipsistic individualism. It loses its demand for power that wants to dominate over others or over anything else. It truly becomes free. And it doesn't have to demand angrily or in rage or in conflict or in defensiveness. Or even in retribution or vengeance or avenging anything of what it is or where it came from. It truly becomes free. And perhaps a metaphor could be a wave in the ocean, although this is not a perfect metaphor. But I'll run with it. And that is, as the wave arises, or the thought, or the feeling, or the idea, or the sensation, whatever it is, it has the freedom to arise, the freedom to crest, the freedom to move, the freedom to curl, the freedom to roll. And to complete its flow of splashing back into the ocean, the shore, and joining the whole again, joining the dance, joining the free flow and the freedom of having enjoyed that arising and cresting and flowing and freedom to be. And that wave never has to go back and demand to be that same wave again. It has been intimately felt and seen and heard and danced with. And that is the nature of intimacy. That is the nature of deep listening. That is the nature of being with what is, just as it is. So in this deep listening, even if discomfort comes up, even if tension or muscle tension or tightness or anger or rage or some negative thought comes up, by this deep listening and compassion and acceptance, it rises, it crests. Within that flow and that rising and cresting, it has, if you will, joy of being, and the joy of being seen and heard and deeply felt. And then it crashes back into the ocean, making a splash perhaps, but in the freedom of it. And so, over time, as one does this form of deep listening, everything and anything that is within one's sensations, feelings, thoughts, muscular tension, etc., rises and crests. And much like an ocean over time, when the winds pass or the storms pass and the rollicking motion of those waves subsides, there is the open peace of the quiet waters. Certainly moving and coming to the shore, if you will. But in such deep listening, the ocean calms. The playing field is cleared. The consciousness field within, the awareness field within oneself clears. And when this clears, one can look out over the horizon and in the simple joy of being, the simple joy of having all one's senses and awareness with oneself and the environment. This sense or a sense of joy, possibility, adventure, arises once again. And this sense of adventure has many curious things to it, or attributes. But perhaps to mention a couple of the higher level, if you will, or top level, as they're all important, elements. And that is within, intrinsically within, as part of this fabric of peace and the calmed ocean, is not only an infinite desire to create and explore and to be on the adventure of living, whatever that is for you, but so too, and I think this is another missing element of general awareness, because we're so conflicted with not accepting or being with or listening to fill in the blank, our thoughts, our feelings, the people in our lives. But what arises from this calmed and full ocean is the sense of wanting to share. What is within. Wanting to share in the intimacy. Wanting to share and be heard and to give and to dance and to be of benefit. To oneself and to others. And it even extends when the listening is very deep to wanting to be of benefit to everything. The physical environment, the biosphere, life itself in all of its myriads of manifestation. Wanting to dance with life in all of its forms. So I'm still working on the answer to the original question above, but to continue for a bit more first. This self-arising nature to be, to manifest, to be a wave that arises and enjoys the movement and crests and curls and returns to the ocean. It is the dance of the universe. It is the dance of God. And I dare say that when this deep listening goes as deep as it can, which is very deep for all of us, that we discover something really incredible. And this is something that many parts of cultures and nations and power circles and authorities and dominance, wherever it occurs, in relationship or families or businesses or nations or any kind of organization or wherever. But we discover the true origins of who we are. The true origins of who we each are. And that common origin of who we each are. And so part of what I'm referring to here is the commonality of our origins, which right there implies intimacy, togetherness, belonging together. A common ground of being for each of us. And which could also be said as sisterhood or brotherhood or personhood. But whatever of those phrases are used, it's that togetherness, that shared togetherness, that shared belonging that comes from being of the same origin. At the deepest level of who we are. And part of what I'm pointing to, part of what this discovery of deep listening, taking it as far as each one of us can take it, we discover that we are each part of the fabric of the universe, arising as that wave of who we are being birthed, beginning its curl, beginning its rise, beginning its curling, its cresting, its freedom to go as high as each of the waves that we each are can be, coming to that pinnacle of freedom and movement of our lives, and joyously and in light and in the sparkling sunlight, catching each of the drops of that wave that scatter and begin to curl and fall. We each are an expression of the fabric of the universe, a common origin for each of us, a common ocean. And when I used the word I dare say, or the phrase I dare say above, what I was referring to is that each of us are this expression of the universe, but which also could be said an expression of God. And thus each of us is dancing with another expression of God, whomever we are and whomever we are with, whoever we are with. But further, we are dancing as a partner with God, with that ocean. And what is often missed, I feel, is that God wants us to be such a partner. Creating and co-creating and being intimate, not only with ourselves and the depths of who we each are, but with each other in this intimate, compassionate sharing and safety. And perhaps again with this imperfect metaphor, at least in my experience, I've never seen a wave at the ocean afraid of being a wave, of whatever size it is, of whatever magnitude, of whatever force, of whatever gentleness. And I could not imagine that a wave would be afraid of itself. Back to the originating question of what the second fold was of what was arising in me as I sat on the side of the bed this morning. And I have such love and compassion arise that brings tears to my heart and to my eyes as I feel this. there is enough quiet in having listened that this pure potential of the ocean of my life, and this is true for each of us, so I'm not limiting it to my experience, but using that to speak. And again, tears of what feel like the bottom of the wave beginning to sense and form and grow and configure and come alive and to start arising as that wave. There's tears of anticipation and excitement and joy and, oh my, can this really be so exhilarating to leave the ocean depths and arise as still part of the ocean and begin that cresting, that arising, that curling. And what I'm referring to is that this is what life is. This is what my day is. This is what each day is for each of us. And there are certainly times when life and the body and oneself needs days of just staying in and being quiet and resting and taking care of oneself in that quieter ocean of life. But generally, I was feeling this sense of adventure of my chosen life, the chosen wave that I am arising as and with at this point in my life. And such is the new morning for each of us in deep listening, when deep listening harvests into that quiet ocean of pure potential, originating from the fabric of the universe, originating from God. In this adventure, in this cresting wave of my life, in this sense of accepting and compassionate and curious and loving and caring, listening, being together, dancing together, listening to each other. Whatever those self-arising, whatever those arising feelings or thoughts or emotions or ideas, of whatever amplitude of anger or joy and everything in between, whatever subtlety of that arising nature. And in the ways that keep each of us sovereign and whole, and the dance partners that we are, I offer myself in this arising nature to each of you. And I offer myself in this cresting wave, if you will, back to God, back to the ocean, in this freedom, this joy, this dance of intimacy. From this common origin of being, this common origin of beingness, this common origin of being the fabric of existence, the fabric of universe, the fabric of the universe, and the fabric of God. And so much love arises. In thinking about, in being with, in experiencing, in sharing this dance of intimacy.